Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be doing a total market breakdown, analyzing the most important charts that dictate the direction that Bitcoin moves. A lot of people have been asking me, where do I ultimately buy this dip that's coming? Are we going to see a dip at all, or is Bitcoin just going to keep rocketing upwards of $30,000? A lot of people have been left behind on the sidelines. The people that weren't willing to accumulate over the last 6 months are now feeling priced out. And for today's video, I'm going to be talking about where the opportune time to be getting back into Bitcoin will be, if we're actually going to see a correction at all, and if we do see that correction, where should you be buying at? Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so here we are talking about today's video. We're going to start off by talking about Bitcoin. We're going to jump into the S&P 500. We're going to be taking a look at the DXY, and we're also going to be looking at Bitcoin dominance, because every single one of these are going to dictate where the market is headed, whether Bitcoin's headed for a correction, whether we're going to rocket straight to 30K, whether the bear market is over for stocks, and most importantly, where the altcoins are going to start taking off in a big way. Thus far, it's been the Bitcoin show. As is every single new bull market, Bitcoin always leads the way. Bitcoin dominance climbs, altcoins lag behind, until finally, at the end of Bitcoin's impulse, altcoins start to outperform. It's just the way that the cycles work. You have Bitcoin, then you have that money that trickles down into high caps, then from the high caps to the mid caps, from the mid caps down to the low caps. And that's generally the way that market cycles work inside of crypto. And it's important to understand, for the people that have been asking me, I'm feeling like I'm getting priced out. I feel like Bitcoin's taking off without me. Do I FOMO buy right here at resistance, or are we going to see a correction? And that's why we're going to be getting into this for today's video. It's a very important topic that I want to make sure that I explain very thoroughly so that you guys ultimately are able to capitalize on the moves ahead. Now, first things first, guys. The way that I'm looking at this impulse is obviously through Elliott wave theory. And Elliott wave theory shows that we finished our wave 1, we finished our wave 2, and we're working on our wave 3, and then after that we will expect to see a wave 4 correction. That will be the opportunity. That will be the opportune time to get back into positions. For the people that weren't buying down here, you want to wait for a 4-wave correction, and then we would still expect to see another 5-wave to the upside. Now, inside of this move, I'm going to break down the subwaves so it's easier to understand where we're actually at. Because inside of this move, we could make one more high before this is over, and I want to talk about how the subwaves actually factor into this. So our subwaves of wave 1 was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. We're going to make these small so it's easy to see. This was our subwaves of wave 1. This was our wave 2 correction, and then we started our wave 3. This was wave 1 of 3. This was wave 3 of 3, and we're working on wave 5 of 3. Now, this can go a couple different ways. Either we've already finished our subwaves of wave 3, and we would expect that this 4-wave correction is going to come in right now, or we still have one more impulse to go before the top of our wave 3, and then our wave 4 correction will be in. Either way, I don't think that anybody should be buying right now. If you are, set a stop loss, a pretty tight stop loss at that. The way that the market looks right now, it is holding support. And so as it stands, this is looking pretty bullish. I won't be surprised to see us actually get one more impulse on the way up. And if that's the case, basically this will just look like this. This is wave 1 of 3. This is wave 3 of 3. This is wave 4, and then we'll be getting one more final impulse before the top of this wave 3 sets in. Either way though, we will expect to see a wave 4 correction coming in very soon. And so I believe that you're better off waiting for that 4-wave correction if you haven't gotten it all, because this 4-wave correction is going to be taking us back down to these prior resistance levels, right? Whether we retest, and let's actually pull up Fibonacci so you guys can understand where we would expect a bottom. Assuming that we're already at the top of our wave 3 right here, we finished our subwave of wave 3, where would we expect to see a correction? Well, honestly, inside of a 4-wave correction, they're usually the smallest corrections because there's still so much buy support inside of a wave 3. Remember, wave 1s are what starts the impulse. Wave 3 is the biggest impulse that has the most money, the most volume that comes into it. And so after Wave 3, oftentimes these Wave 4 corrections are pretty small in comparison because there's still a lot of people that are buying inside of this Wave 4. And then that's what sets us in for our final Wave 5 impulse to the upside, right? And that's the way that these are going to work. Now, inside of a Wave 4 correction, the area that I think that we would most likely bottom at, assuming that we're already at the top of our Wave 3, would be this 382 level, which is going to be taking us right down into support of our Wave 4 subwaves, right? And if that's the case, that's also going to be lining up with pretty much our range highs that we were at right before the FTX collapsed. And so it is possible that we come all the way down to the 0.5, and it is also possible that we come down to the 618. If we come down to the 618, it shows a little bit more weakness. It shows a lot more volatility, which, you know, could be expected considering this is the first breakout into a new bull trend. But based off of prior cycles, normally they're not that deep of corrections. Average, you know, they kind of hold good buy support because there's a lot of money coming into the market when we start to get our beginning of the new bull trend, right? And so we really can go three different ways, but for me, I would be looking to target the 382 first. And I'm just going to have money on the sidelines waiting to buy either way. Keep in mind, guys, I've been accumulating since down here. It's not really that big of a deal if we get a correction for me because I'm already kind of positioned for this next cycle. And so this is mainly talking for the people that weren't buying down here, weren't buying in here, and are feeling like they're getting priced out. Now, the way that the market structure looks in the shorter time frames, it's honestly looking like we are going to get one more impulse before the top of this wave 3. Which, if we do that, it's going to be taking us upwards of our range highs, you know, basically where we're at in August of 2022. And if that's the case, let's assume that we rally upwards of about, you know, let's just say this level at 24.2 thousand. Let's actually talk about where we would correct from that point. We would be holding higher support. The 382 would be taking us to about $21,000. The 0.5 would be taking us to about 20,000.2, and our 618 would be taking us down to about 19.3. And that's kind of the way that I'm leaning towards as it stands right now. Originally, what I was watching for was that this was going to be a wave 1, this was going to be a wave, oops, I did it wrong. This was a wave 1, this was a wave 3, and this was a wave 5, and we are starting our wave 4. Based off of how well we're holding support from this sell-off that we saw, I'm actually leaning that this was a wave 1, this was a wave 3, wave 4, and we still have one more subwave, wave 5, before the top of this wave 3 sets in. Inside of Bitcoin, it's a very impulsive, it's a very emotional market, and so we oftentimes see very clear Elliott waves, and that's exactly what we see right now. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to be able to spot this Elliott wave count right now, and so there's literally only two scenarios that we're seeing. Either way, after this move, we are expecting to see a wave 4 correction. After that, that's really the point where you want to be getting back into the market. We correct all the way back down to somewhere around these levels, and then that's going to start our final impulse into this wave 5. And if we come out here to a bigger time frame, and we kind of scroll out, I've been talking about my target for $30,000 for a while now, and that's just the target that I'm going to continue to stick to. I think that that's going to be the mid-range point. And our bigger picture cycle will look something like this. We'll rally upwards of this, complete our wave 5, and that will signal our first bearish correction inside of the new trend. And so, guys, you can have patience either way. Either you wait for the top of our wave 1 impulse, which will be the top of this wave 5, and you wait for that correction to follow, or you buy this 4-wave correction that's coming up. Those are the two scenarios that I see for the best opportunity to get in. The problem with waiting for wave 5 is the fact that we don't know how high that's going to go. We can look at prior bear markets and the beginning of new bull markets, and we can kind of get a picture. Inside of this one, we rallied all the way up to the 618 Fibonacci, which was right here. That was the biggest bear market breakout that we had ever seen up to that point. But keep in mind, guys, that the bigger the breakout to the upside, the deeper the pullback to the downside. I'm not expecting a black swan event like COVID, but this was a 72% correction from the high to the low. And so the bigger that the impulse is, the bigger that the correction will be to the downside, or at least that's what I'm leaning towards. We can come back down to 2017 and see a little bit of a difference here. Inside of our 2017 cycle, it wasn't nearly as impulsive, but it was still a decent move. This one rallied in between the 382 and the 236, and then we had a 40% correction on the way back down, right? And now we can go all the way back down to our first cycle, which was actually the smallest breakout that we'd ever seen into a new bull cycle. And we didn't even hit the 236. We were basically in between the 236 and the 0. And so what we can say moving forward, this was actually a 40% correction back down. That's basically the way that I'm looking at this. And it's not like this cycle is going to follow exact to all of our prior cycles. Every cycle is different to some extent. And that's why I'm saying that, you got to be expecting the unexpected. But because the Elliott wave structure is so easy to identify right now, I would say that you're better off waiting for this 4-wave correction, because in my opinion, the 4-wave correction is pretty obvious to tell that that will happen. We might not know how high this wave 5 goes, but we do know that a wave 4 correction is due, and that will be a good opportunity to get in, because we're still below our range highs that we were at in August. This 4-wave correction that comes in will be a support and resistance flip of these prior support levels that we were at before the FTX collapsed. And so always, guys, always, we have the downtrend, lower lows, lower highs. When we start our first breakout into the new bull trend, we'll make this green so you guys can tell, we always have a correction back down onto previous resistance that will now act as trending support. And that's where we get confirmation into the new trend, right? We have this bear market decline all the way back down, lower lows, lower highs. We ultimately flip previous resistance as support. And once that takes place, that is the opportune time to get in. For the people that weren't willing to catch a falling knife down here, which was throughout this period, you can wait for confirmation of a higher high, the first higher high in the new bull trend. And that's, in my opinion, where we're going to see pretty much that confirmation come in here inside of this wave 4. That's where I would be looking to target. Now, assuming, let's see how high we could actually go in here. We'll draw a couple different areas. We're pretty much already at the level that our first cycle topped at here in 2012, which was pretty much, which I would say is going to be our range highs right here. That would be the shortest impulse that we would expect to see based off of prior cycles. In 2016, we pretty much peaked in between the 382 and the 236, which would be taking us upwards of $30,000, which is, my price target that I was expecting and calling for down here. Now, if we rally upwards of what we saw in 2019, that was all the way up here to the 618, which would be taking us to about $48,000 to $50,000. That, we would expect to see a pretty decent correction back to the downside. But with us being at a point in Bitcoin's history where this bear market wasn't as big and deep as our prior bear markets, it only corrected 77%. I'm not necessarily expecting that wherever our corrections are inside of this new bull trend, I'm not expecting them to be as volatile as our prior bear markets, because the liquidity was significantly lower back in those time frames. And so now that we're sitting at, multi-billions of dollars of market cap, specifically hundreds of billions of dollars in total market cap, now than ever before, I do believe that we're going to get even more stable inside of the Bitcoin price. And so we're still seeing massive impulses. I mean, obviously, Bitcoin's still very volatile nonetheless, but any sort of correction that we see after we finish this wave 5, whether it's 30,000, whether it's 26 or 27,000, we could make a little tiny high out of this wave 4. It's not like there's some specific area that we have to hit. Wave 5s themselves can differ in a big extent. This was our wave 5 top of our 2021 cycle. It barely made a new all-time high, right? We got these two tiny little peaks past the all-time high, and then we ended up getting our bear market. If we come all the way back down in here to what we saw in 2017, this was our wave 5 impulse. And so oftentimes wave 5s can be small. They can also be very overextended. It just depends around how much hype gets set in at the market at a given time, which is why I say that instead of trying to play the 5 wave, play this wave 4 correction that we'll see, because that's an obvious support and resistance flip. Now, moving forward into the big picture, wherever we end up topping, I'm just going to draw this upwards of 30K because that's the target I've had. After this 4 wave, we'll expect one more move upwards of 30K. And when that happens, that will be the completion of a wave 1, a wave 3, and a wave 5, which will be our first impulse into the new bull trend. After that, we will expect to see another correction on the way back down. And inside of that correction, that could be another area where you would wait for. Instead of trying to buy this 4 wave, you might just simply wait for the entire impulse to complete and then look to accumulate on that correction back down into our wave 2. Because it will look something like this. This will be our wave 1, and then we'll be getting a wave 2 correction, which could take us all the way back down into the same area that we might be bottoming out inside of our next correction, which would be anywhere from 21,000, 20 and a half, all the way down to 19.5. I wouldn't be surprised to see our first impulse complete, and it looks something like this. This is wave 1, this is wave 3, then we get wave 5, and then we correct like this all the way back down and do something like that heading into 2024. That's kind of what I'm watching for, and it all depends on, you know, a number of factors. We can't predict the exact price. One of the factors I'm personally watching for is the S&P 500, because how bullish the S&P 500 is really what's going to dictate how bullish crypto is as well. What I was talking to you guys about in my last video was the potential of a breakout of this descending resistance. We are actually closing back below that resistance, and we actually corrected all the way back down to about 3,950, and now we're seeing a bounce from that point. And so in my opinion, we are going to get a breakout from this. What was apparent to me was the closer that we started hugging this resistance and holding support in here, that told me that we are getting very close to a breakout. And so even though we actually ended up flipping back below this in this last 24 hours, I think it's likely that we're still going to be breaking out and rallying upwards of $4,100. And so once that happens, that in my opinion is the go-to for all of the big money that's been waiting on the sidelines to jump back into the equities, jump back into the stock market, jump back into crypto as well. And we're already kind of seeing crypto taking off because smart money has jumped back in. And so I believe that that's an early sign that the stock market will break out. And, you know, once this breakout is finished, that's most likely where we're going to be seeing the top of this wave 5. Once the S&P 500 finishes its breakout into the new bull trend, you know, which could go higher, we could rally all the way upwards of 43, and then Bitcoin rallies upwards of 30,000 inside of that move right here. And then we would expect to see a deeper correction on the way back down. The S&P 500 would probably come back down to retest these highs over here. It would be our first higher high, and then that would set us in for a bigger move heading into, you know, sometime in 2024, in my opinion. Anything can happen. But what we're looking at based off of the dollar index is sitting at a major level. Now, I've still been adamant in believing that we will actually see a bounce from this level, but we are at the very low point of my box. I was expecting anywhere from this high to this low as being where we're ultimately going to see a bounce, and these are also coinciding with this high and this high, taking us all the way back to 2016. So I do believe that we will see a short-term bounce, but I don't believe that we're going to see that bounce until Bitcoin tops in this wave 5 and the S&P 500 finishes its first breakout into the new bull trend. With the DXY, you know, we could see a bounce here and then us retest this level and get something like a double bottom before we see the completion of that move. Let's make it red so it's easier to see. But then either way, whether we rally upwards of 105 or whether we rally upwards of 108, those are kind of the areas that I'm expecting for a bounce inside of the DXY. These two levels right here. And once we do finish that bounce, that's kind of where I'm expecting to see the next beginning of our bull cycle, right? The DXY, in my opinion, just finished a major cycle top. If we look out here on the bigger time frames, which I have to go to a monthly to show you, if we come out here to the bigger time frames, we've already finished a 5-wave impulse up. This was wave 1, this was wave 3, and now we're working on wave 5 right now. Well, we finished wave 5 in my opinion. Now comes the bear market decline. I do believe that we see a bounce off this level. We rally back up, but that will just be our first lower high, and then that'll set us in for our lower low heading into our next bear market for the dollar and our bull market for the S&P 500 and crypto. That's the way it looks like for me. Now let's talk about the Bitcoin dominance here, because this is also going to dictate, you know, the direction that not only Bitcoin goes, but altcoins as well. For people that are wondering about altcoin analysis, this is really where we're going to be able to find the answers to that. We've been inside of this channel for the duration since Bitcoin's been at 65,000 and then it went to 69,000. We've been inside of this channel. Now we've been ping-ponging back and forth, but every single new bull market, Bitcoin always leads the show. All the smart money goes into Bitcoin, then Bitcoin breaks out, smart money takes profits, and then diversifies into altcoins. We can see that this was the bottom of our 2018 cycle. This was when Bitcoin went to 14K. So we actually saw Bitcoin bottom at its bear market and then make one more impulse before the completion of the Bitcoin dominance bull market. Then that started the altcoin distribution where the money left Bitcoin and went into altcoins. And so as it stands, Bitcoin has basically just been breaking out and making higher highs and higher lows throughout the duration of its first impulse. And I do believe that we're going to rally upwards of this range high. Now, the way it looks like to me, I think that we'll do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. and then we'll get one more impulse upwards of about 54 to 55%. We'll clear the range highs that we saw here, and then that will ultimately be our topping point before we get a brand new bull cycle and Bitcoin dominance trends to another new all-time low. That will be an amazing opportunity for altcoins, but I believe that the best time for altcoins will be once Bitcoin actually gets upwards of about 50% dominance. I don't think it's a bad idea to buy altcoins right here at the range highs, because assuming we don't even get this big breakout, assuming we do something like this, 2, 3, 4, and then this is the top, you don't want to wait around too much for that to happen. It is possibility that we don't clear the range highs, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Ethereum looks so good against Bitcoin. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually end up holding a little bit better support on the altcoins than, maybe prior cycles. But nonetheless, the way it looks like to me and the way I'm kind of leaning is that we will clear these range highs, and then from that point, that's where we're going to see all of the altcoin money start to take off in a big way. There's a lot of different things that we'll look at. I'll keep you guys updated. This is kind of what I'm looking at. If you guys want to get in, wait for this 4-wave correction to take place, whether it's one more high or whether it's right where we're at now, because we will still be expecting to see one more major wave 5 before the completion of this impulse is done. Or if you really are skeptical about the market, wait till the top of this wave 5, because once this happens, we'll have successfully made a higher high above our August resistance, and then you can actually accumulate our entire correction back down as we flip this previous range as support. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys want to join the Discord server and see exactly where I'm placing my money, how I'm diversifying my portfolio, which altcoins I'm buying at the bottom of this cycle, and what I'm looking to do when I take profits, links are in the description for anybody that would like to sign up. It's a one-time fee. It's a lifetime access. As long as I'm doing this channel, as long as I'm trading these cycles, which is as long as it's going to be profitable in my opinion, that you guys are going to have total access to everything that I'm doing. And so make sure you guys join. It's a good opportunity with the bottom of the market being in. Now that we're beginning the new bull cycle, this is where all of the profits are made. So I look forward to seeing you guys in there. Thank you all so much for the support. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.